Okay, back off. Where's the launcher? Where are you? Nothing. All right, let's get it on. Hi everybody, welcome back for another video. Don't be caught like me. Don't be caught with just your bare fist to have to defend yourself against an attacker. You have to think ahead, you have to plan, and that's why you need to choose the right launcher, and it needs to be a launcher that is not the worst launcher. So that's the topic of the video today. What is the worst, less lethal launcher that you can use? And that is a very subjective term. The worst, less lethal launcher may be the worst for you, may be the best for someone else. But the worst, less lethal launcher is the one that you just can't carry with you. You don't have it on body, you did not take it that day, and that is the day that you run into an attacker and it's not there. You fumble around and you think, well, where's my launcher? I don't have it. And that's because you left it at home. And so it doesn't matter, maybe the launcher was too big and you just couldn't carry it, or maybe the launcher was too small and what you thought was too weak and you thought, well, I'm not going to take it, it's not going to do enough for me. Or maybe you were a little skeptical about the chemical rounds or the kinetic rounds and you hadn't decided what's the best option for you. Maybe you have legal concerns, maybe you haven't really read up on all the legal laws in your jurisdiction. Maybe you're a little confused, but you bought something and you've put it away. Maybe you fired it, maybe you haven't. Maybe you haven't practiced enough, you don't feel comfortable taking it out. Well, there is, the worst, less lethal launcher is that one that you just don't take out. And it might be a perfect fit for someone else, but it might not be the right one that suits your needs. And you need to give it a lot of thought and a lot of care. I talk about different launchers. I recently talked about the Berna. I recently talked about the Pistelle. I recently talked about the Grimberg, not only the full-size Gavle, but the Gavle Carry, which is coming. These are great options that are out there. They're very popular. And there's a lot of others that I really haven't talked about a lot on this channel. And, for me personally, the ones that are too big, they don't suit me. So they fall into my worst, less lethal launcher category. I don't care if they're the most popular or they're the most powerful. Maybe they're not for me. Maybe that's the worst for me. You just have to tailor it to your needs. Don't just go out and buy something because Joe Internet told you to on one of his YouTube videos. And he said, this has great power. I love it. Buy it. Or he says, this is a great launcher. And just because he said that means that you've got to run out and get it. You need to think about your own needs in great detail, unless you're just a collector and you want to buy them and the next one comes along and you're ready for it. Yeah, it's not my approach because I just don't want to take on that time and responsibility of taking in a launcher that I know I have no intention of using. And I get asked that a lot. People say, well, you really like this launcher and you say good things about it. I'm waiting for you to get it. It's about time. Why don't you get it? And I tell them, I say, I'm sold on the launcher. There's nothing wrong with it. I think they've done their due diligence now. They've, iteration version 1 to version 2 is now much better. I like this or I like that about it. It could be used in this situation, in my case, but maybe not in this situation. But if it's not something that I really feel that I can use and integrate into my self-defense portfolio right now, and it's not something that I feel an urgent need for in terms of when I would actually legally use it, then I don't get it. And so I fall in that conundrum when it comes to the 50 joule launcher versus the 30 joule launcher versus the PepperBall launchers, which are just designed for delivering PepperBalls 15 joules or so. I find I have a hard time to decide between that gray zone between a 50 and a 30. And the reason why is because a 50 is a much more likely to put the legal spotlight on you if you use it, much more likely to break a rib anytime that you do something that will create a damage that requires a person to go to the hospital, the chances of a lawsuit go up exponentially. If you use something that's 30 joules and under, and that gives them a nice sting and a nice deterrent, and you can get off safely, that's really, for me, that's the best bet. I want to deter, distract, and get away. 50 joules, you do run the risk of not only as long as you hit them from here down, you run the risk of breaking something, and that's really not our goal with less lethal. Our goal is not to put someone on the ground injured. Our goal is to get away. And so I have a hard time to justify a 50 joule launcher for me. Now, if you are a person who is prohibited from having a firearm and you do not have the ability to force escalate and you don't have those options available to you, I completely understand your need or your desire to find some intermediate level of force that may suit your needs for protecting yourself and your family. I get that. But I also think that you have to be realistic about what is practical for everyday carry, size-wise. A 50 joule launcher, by its nature, is always going to be bigger. It's always going to take up more space. It's always going to be maybe a little more expensive, depends on the launcher. But it also is going to be harder for you to carry. And so if you can't carry that nice, powerful 50 joule launcher with you every day, and you encounter that person on the street, that becomes the worst, less lethal launcher for you. And for me, that might be the case, because I'm positive my PepperBall TCP is not 50 joules. It's mid-30s. I can put a long barrel on there and I can go up into the mid-50s, and it packs a punch, but it's got that extra length, and it's just, even in the most compact form, it's too much for me. And I live in warm climates, and I live in places where I want to dress without lots of bulk and lots of coverage, and jackets and sweaters and vests are things that I just do not go for most of the year. I always get the argument, wintertime, yeah, you need a more powerful launcher. You need 50 joules because that's going to punch through all those layers. Well, if you look at the numbers, punching through layers, let's say that reduces your amount of force on target by 20 or 30%. Well, yeah, it's going to bring down the amount of joules that the person will experience. But a 30 joule launcher is still going to give you a punch as well. It's just a proportion, and it depends on what kind of proportion you want to give. Do you want to give, I guess if you want to give the most proportion you can, that's great, but how are you going to carry it? Are you going to have it with you? I prefer something that is carryable. I prefer something that I can access easily. That's why pepper spray is my favorite. I got pepper spray in my pocket, I can pull it out. I like the idea of something that is compact enough that I can make sure that I've got it with me every day. And if I do run into that person on the street, and I would not even use it for a person that was threatening me, trying to punch or this or that, only as a last resort if it became very serious. And that's the only time that you should ever want to pull one of these. And so at the end of the day, the worst launcher for you, if you consider it too weak, well, that's the worst launcher for you. I don't think there's any such thing as a worst, less lethal launcher in general, because all less lethal launchers bring something to the table. There are some that just suffer from they're cheap, they break easily, they're just unreliable, and maybe they don't work with the best of ammo, maybe the bore sizes are just not good. There's a lot of generic launchers out there that may or may not be up to the title of using for less lethal, some of which are just safe for plinking and paintballing, and maybe as a backup with pepper rounds, but even then I think there's some question. There are some brands that just stand up above the rest in terms of customer support and reliability. I think Byrna, Grimberg, those are great companies. It looks like Assault Supply is producing some great stuff. Pistelle, NX Works, they seem to really have nailed the engineering side in terms of optimizing the amount of power that you get per shot over the course of a mag. What I really want to see though, to get out of the worst less lethal category, is I want to see a smaller size, but I want to see a reloadable mag that has a CO2 in mag like my TCP. I love that system. I just want to see it in a more compact form using an 8 gram CO2, but maximizing the power of that 8 gram CO2 like I talked about in a previous video. There's a lot more power there than people appreciate. It's just got to be, the efficiency has to be improved. And so there's still always room for growth. I'm always giving out advice, and I understand that it takes a long time, but I'm impressed by the pace it's picking up. Less lethal manufacturers are really doing the right things right now. There's some good stuff coming along, and if the pace continues as it is, maybe within a year or two, something like that will exist, and we can all keep waiting and hoping for the best. Make good decisions when you're out and about. Have something with you, whether it's a tactical pin or pepper spray or a launcher. Something is better than nothing. Always have something. Your worst less lethal launcher is having nothing. You need to have something on you when you go out. Everybody, that's my message for this week. Everybody take care. See you next time. Uh-oh. I see you, buddy. Where's my launcher? Where's the launcher? Oh, nothing. Nothing. Oh.